Hello there.
What is going on, everyone? And my name is Wolful77 and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be bringing back a series that I used to have on my previous channel before it got taken down, and that was the Battlefront 2 inspired Spyro game concept. So this is pretty much what would a Spyro game look like if it was based on Battlefront 2. It's as simple as that. So last time when we did actually cover this on my previous channel, for those who did remember, we got all the hero concepts done, which was 6 different parts. There were 2 heroes in each one, 6 for the light side, 6 for the dark side. So I thought we may as well start with bringing those ones back once again, and yeah, we'll just go from there. So what we go over basically is the base description, their base health, the appearances, which can also be subject to change or rather add later on. You got your base attacks, your abilities, and your star cards. Now, emotes, I'm thinking of being in a different video in future. If you guys can maybe help me with that, if you got any suggestions, then yeah. We'll also cover the different modes, different mode concepts and different maps and so forth. And I'll also be doing a couple of DLC season concepts. I've already got 3 in mind. So yeah, without further ado, we'll get straight into it. So we're going to start off with the first 2 light side heroes, who are going to be Spyro and Cynder. You obviously need these 2 in the game, because otherwise it's not really a Spyro game without them. Anyways, so we're going to start off with Spyro. So the description I've got here is, hailing from the rare line of purple dragons born every 10 generations, Spyro protects the world from the sinister threats of the darkness. Able to harness several elemental breaths, Spyro brings a fierce and heroic attitude to the battle while still finding the fun in his adventures. So this is the usual Spyro that we all know and love. I sort of decided to mix a bit of the classic Spyro with Legend of Spyro together in terms of the description. Obviously being the protector, but at the same time being his fun, cheery self that we've seen in the classic games. So in terms of a base health, I've come up with 750 health for Spyro, which I think is what Luke and a few others have in Battlefront 2. So it just seems right for someone like Spyro to have that much health. And then in terms of appearances, which is what I've got here, the default appearance is going to be called Purple Dragon. So this is pretty much going to be based on Dawn of the Dragon and how he looks in that. That's just what I've gone with for my concept. And then in terms of other appearances that I have here, the first unlockable appearance is Battle Armor. So this is his Dawn of the Dragon look once again, but for those who did play The Legend of Spyro Dawn of the Dragon or are familiar with it, you were able to get different armored sets for like a headpiece, a tail, and the braces, which are for like the front paws on like the... Basically, if it was our hands, it'd be on the wrists, so they're like bracelets, pretty much. So it's sort of based on that, pretty much. But yeah, the second appearance, which are, by the way, the Battle Armor appearance, if I forgot to mention it, is an epic appearance. The second epic appearance is going to be the Reignited skin. So this is your general Reignited Spyro. He'll have the exact same abilities and so forth, but it will just be a completely new look for him. So that's an easy one there. And then I've got 2 legendary appearances here. The first one is Dark Spyro, which is one of my favorite looks for Spyro overall in literally anything to do with Spyro. And of course, this was first introduced in the Eternal Night, and then was later brought back again in Dawn of the Dragon. So of course this one is going to be based on the Dawn of the Dragon look, because it's just like a different texture overlay pretty much on the main sort of body. And then the final legendary appearance that I have here is titled Father, which is the adult Spyro appearance. Now, the one I'm basing this off from is from a comic, or rather comics that I've read from an artist known as, I don't know how to pronounce her name properly. I think it's Shalonsk, or rather Shalone for short. She's got an S and the K on the end, but the picture's up now, obviously. So in these comics, he's obviously a father, with Cynder being the mother, and so forth. And this would completely change how he looks. Like, he'd be bigger, pretty much the size of Ignitus, or any of the other Guardians, pretty much. And he'd be a lot stronger, and so forth. But yeah, this would completely change how he plays. And then we get into the attacks. So his primary attack would be Fire Breath, which is using the trigger button for like a shooter game, basically. His secondary attack would be using his Dragon Claws and his tail, which would be the melee attack. So if you press down on the R joystick, or the right joystick, I should say, the up arrow on the controller is flight, which does also affect the stamina. And then the aim button is blocking using wings. So every dragon character that we're going to cover will always have the ability to use their Dragon Claws and tail. Well, most of them to what I can think of. But they'll always have flight, and they'll always block with their wings. So it's pretty much like that. Although some may not block with their wings, depending on who it is. But yeah. And then we get into abilities. Now, of course, the general abilities in terms of how many each hero has is 3. But Spyro and Malefor for the dark side, I've decided to have 4 abilities. So, like Anakin Skywalker in Battlefront 2, who has his passive ability, the win button, as we'll refer it to. It's not going to be as broken as that, though. So, anyways, the first ability I've got for Spyro here is called Burning Comet. So, Spyro breathes in and lets out a Scorching Comet that will deal damage over time to anyone it hits for a short period of time, but more if affected by both the splash and main damage. So, this would be a pretty nifty ability to use, because it just sort of reminded me of his Comet Dash in The Legend of Spyro Dawn of the Dragon, slightly, and you can get a lot of damage with this one. The second ability is called Dragon Fury. So this is where Spyro channels in the elements of the purple dragon and temporarily gives himself an increased health buff and damage output increase, also allowing himself to take more damage from enemies. So all it is just increased health, well, bonus health, and increase damage reduction. Or rather, he takes less damage, literally. It's just that. And the final ability, well, the third ability, I should say, is Scorching Charge. So this is where Spyro charges forward, head down with horns ready, ramming enemies out of the way and leaving a mark for sure. So this is what you would do in the classic games where you would charge forward with your head down. That's literally what I've gone with, because that's a very iconic move that Spyro has in the game. And then the passive ability that I have here for Spyro is what I call Heroic Legend. So this is where Spyro unleashes all 4 elements at once on his enemies, being able to switch between all 4, which is fire, electricity, ice, and earth, and truly showing his enemies the true power of the purple dragon. Fire deals damage over time, electricity stuns enemies temporarily, ice freezes enemies temporarily, and earth knocks enemies to the ground. All elements deal immense amounts of damage, but the ability takes much longer to charge up over time by a much larger amount. So, I was thinking, say, you gotta wait for at least maybe 5 to 7 minutes for it to actually charge up and then use it again. So it's not going to be where you take damage or you're close to enemies taking damage and it charges up. It's just going to be a timer thing, basically. So you want to try and stay alive in that duration pretty much. And now, we're gonna get into star cards. Now, I had to tweak all this, like, one star card for every single hero and villain that I had here, because Battlefront 2 changed the health on kill cards, made the health on kill passive, and replaced that original star card with a new one. So now I've got a new star card for each of the heroes. So the new one for Spyro, to replace the health on kill, is every enemy defeated or 200 damage to villains increases Spyro's damage by 2 to a maximum. This effect resets after Spyro is defeated. So you guys should all recognize this is Luke Skywalker's new star card, where his lightsaber damage will go up by 2, but instead this is just Spyro with his regular attacks. So it's pretty much like that. The second star card I've got here is Spyro's stamina bar drains slower. Now this is going to be something I'll have with all the dragons, because they need their stamina a lot. The third one is Spyro has increased health regeneration. That's a general star card every other character has. And then we get into the star cards for each of the abilities, minus Heroic Legend, because that's a passive ability. So the first one for Burning Comet is the radius of Burning Comet is bigger. So it's just a much bigger impact. And the second one is the duration of the damage over time effect for Burning Comet is longer. So you get a lot more out of it, which means there's more damage and it's easier to get enemies eliminated even if they had more health than usual. So that's just a win-win sort of scenario there. And then we get into the cards for Dragon Fury. So the first one is Spyro gains more health from Dragon Fury with the duration longer also. So it's just like a slight buff increase, pretty much. That's all it is. And the other one is Spyro deals even more damage when Dragon Fury is active. So literally he's just more powerful. That's all it is. And then the final two are for Scorching Charge. So the first one is Spyro can take more damage whilst using Scorching Charge. So this is similar to excuse me, to someone like Rey, where she uses her dashing strike and she takes less damage. Same thing with General Grievous when he uses the Claw Rush with the specific star card where he has the damage reduction and so forth. It's literally that. And then the other one is every enemy Spyro hits with Scorching Charge increases the damage. So that's also pretty much Rey's star card, where every single one she hits, damage increases. I think someone else has it, I just can't think of it right now. Or maybe it is just Rey, I'm not sure. But anyways, that's all I've got for Spyro as of right now. If you guys do happen to have any other suggestions and so forth for what I could have for Spyro, then just let me know and I might address it in another video. But now we're going to get into Cynder and what she has. So the description I've got here is, formerly the servant to Malifaux after being taken as an egg, Cynder turned over a new leaf after turning back to the light with the help of Spyro. Now a fierce and confident dragoness, she's proud to fight alongside her love Spyro and their friends, while still bringing a little bit of her dark side to good use with the light. So we all know she used to be addressed as Cynder, Terror of the Skies. And then, of course, in A New Beginning, Spyro was able to save her, turn her back into her normal self. And then eventually, their bond grew more and more throughout Dawn of the Dragon especially. Eternal Night was sort of like a little in between, but then Dawn of the Dragon really did get that relationship growing more and more. And yeah. So in terms of her base health, I've decided to go with 700. It probably could be 750, but she's not as strong as Spyro, but she's definitely better in other areas. I mean, because Spyro can't be good at everything, obviously. But then we get to appearances. So the first appearance, the default that is is just going to be called Black Dragoness, which is going to be her Dawn of the Dragon look. We all know that one. And then the first and only epic appearance that I have here is going to be the Battle Armor look. So same thing as Spyro, it's going to be based on Dawn of the Dragon. Pretty much with what they had for the armor. It could be slightly different, you never know, but it would be pretty cool to have an armored look in there. And then the first legendary appearance is going to be Dark Cynder. So the one I'm referring to specifically is at the very end of Dawn of the Dragon, before they fight off against Malefor. Malefor turns Cynder, well, for a little bit, mind controls her and turns her into Dark Cynder. And then she changes back to herself after a little bit. And then the final appearance I've got here, that's a legendary that is her mother appearance, which is Adult Cynder, that's the other name. So this is what I said, where it's based on the comics or the fan-made comics, I should say. They're not officially published or anything, but yeah. I just think this would be a really cool look to have. If you had this with the father Spyro appearance, that would be a really, really dope team right there. But then we get into the attack. So her primary trigger button is going to be Poison Breath, which is going to be, it's kind of going to be like fire, but it's going to be green. I guess it could be like that. And then of course her secondary attack is using Dragon Claws and her tail. The up arrow is going to be Flight, which affects stamina also, and the aim button is going to be blocking using the wings. So that's easy, straightforward there. Like I said, the dragons are pretty much the same with all their attacks, not really much difference there and so forth. Then we get into the abilities. So her first ability is Fearful Exposure. Cynder frightens her target for a short time, leaving them renderless to do anything but move slower, as they also become more vulnerable to damage. So this is kind of like Count Dooku's Expose Weakness ability, where he focuses it on a target and they move slower and so forth, which is literally what I've got here for Cynder for Fearful Exposure. So just think of Count Dooku's Expose Weakness ability, and that's exactly what it does. The second ability is Fierce Rage. So Cynder taps into her dark powers and becomes more ferocious, dealing faster attacks and having a temporary damage reduction. So Cynder is a lot quicker on her feet than Spyro would be, so that's why I decided to go with this for Cynder. And then of course she's got to have that slight damage reduction just for the meantime. And then the final ability is Shadow Strike. So this is where Cynder dives into the ground using the element of Shadow, allowing her to evade any incoming damage, and once the action is used again, she launches up from the ground and strikes her enemy in surprise. That's pretty straightforward there. So you'll be able to sneak up to your enemies pretty much, or get away from something and not get hit. So it's in a way like a personal shield, but it's not a shield. You actually literally dive into the ground. Although I'm thinking it might be possible to be shot still by enemies or hit by them, or maybe, well, I mean, it does say evade, so you might be able to miss every attack or something, I don't know. But you can use it to sneak up behind someone or go in front of them and strike up at them, dealing quite a good amount of damage. And then we're going to get into the star cards for Cynder. So the replacement star card for the health on kill is, for every enemy Cynder defeats, she gains an increased speed, well, speed increase by 2% to a maximum until she is defeated. So this is, there's a couple of heroes in Battlefront 2 who have this thing. It goes up by like 2% and then resets when they're defeated, but it also goes up to a maximum. So that's what I've done here for Cynder. Of course, she has the health on kill. That's the passive, though. Then we've got her Cynder's stamina bar drains slower. I just said cinnamon for a second. But yeah, so stamina bar drains slower. And then she has a increased health regeneration. Same old, same old. And then we get to the first two for Fearful Exposure. So the first one being the effect of Fearful Exposure lasts longer on the targeted player. So it gives you and your allies more time to be able to make your move, pretty much. And this does work on enemy villains also, just keep that in mind. And then the second one is Fearful Exposure makes the targeted enemy even more vulnerable to Cynder and her allies' attacks. So literally they are screwed in terms of how much damage they will take. They will take a lot of damage. Then we get to the two for Fierce Rage. So the first one being Cynder becomes even more ferocious with Fierce Rage as the ability lasts longer for every enemy defeated whilst active. So yeah, it's like Vader has a similar ability, and a couple of other characters, heroes have that also, where you defeat an enemy and then it adds more time to your timer before it runs out. So it's just that. And then the other one is Cynder receives a damage output increase whilst Fierce Rage is active. So usually the general ability doesn't actually give you a damage output increase, but with this card, that gives you that bonus. So it's a little bonus to the general ability there. And then the final two are for Shadow Strike. So the first one is Cynder can remain in the ground for longer when using Shadow Strike. So when you think about it now, it's like Chewbacca's Charge Slam ability. I think it's called Charge Slam. I don't know because I don't usually play Chewbacca in Battlefront 2. But this is where like he'd be running forward, ready to slam his fists on the ground. It's the same thing with Cynder here. But obviously with this card, it lasts for longer. And then the last card is Cynder's Shadow Strike affects a larger area when she rises up again when attacking her enemies. So you want to not be the enemy and be too close to her pretty much with this, because it could be pretty devastating in the end. But apart from that, that's all I've got for Spyro and Cynder, who are the first two hero concepts for this overall series, which there's going to be plenty of videos in this series, by the way, guys, so be sure to stick around for each and every one. In the next one, we're going to cover the first two dark side heroes, who are going to be Malifaux and Gol. Gol is from The Legend of Spyro the Eternal Knight, for those who didn't know. And of course, Malifaux is talked about throughout the whole trilogy, but he appears officially in Dawn of the Dragon. So, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Go and share this video around with your friends and family. Leave a like. Comment down below your thoughts on the video, and if you've got any other ideas for future concepts. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video.